welcome to this month's version of Park Place Views, brought to you by the City of Janesville and JATV Media Services. This program aims to keep Janesville residents informed by highlighting the people, places, and events in the City of Janesville. On last month's episode, we talked about Janesville's 2016 city budget and other fiscal issues with City Manager Mark Freitag, Finance Director Tim Allen, and Assistant to the City Manager Max Gagan. We learned about the budget process, the city's comprehensive annual financial report, how tax money is spent, budget changes for 2016, and more. If you want to watch any previous Park Place Views episodes, they are available to watch on our website and JATV's YouTube page. On this month's episode, I'll be talking with Economic Development Director Gale Price and Economic Development Coordinator Dayna Sarver to learn about economic development within Janesville. Welcome to the show, Gale and Dayna.
Thank you.
Yep. Gale Price originally came to Janesville in 2001 as the Senior Planner, Site Plan Review Coordinator with the Planning Department. In 2005, when the Community Development Department was created, Gale was promoted to Manager of Building and Development Services. In 2015, Gale became the City of Janesville's Economic Development Director. He holds a Bachelor's of Urban Planning degree from the University of Cincinnati. Prior to working for the City of Janesville, Gale held 3 different planner positions over 10 years for the City of Champaign, Illinois. Dayna Sarver has a Bachelor of Arts degree in Economics from Central College in Pella, Iowa, and a Master of Science degree in Urban and Regional Planning from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. From February 2014 to May 2015, she was a project assistant at UW Extension Center for Community and Economic Development in Madison. She began working for the City of Janesville in August 2015 as the Economic Development Coordinator. So guys, can you tell me a little bit more about yourself, starting with Gale?
Great, thank you.
Yep.
I'm originally from Central Ohio. My wife, Mandy, we've been married 6.5 years. She's originally from Darien, so close by, Wisconsinite.
Right.
And we have 2 boys, Will and AJ. And we live here in town, and in my free time, when I have some, I like to exercise and play sports, ice hockey, been a member of the curling club in the past.
Right on.
And so some good stuff like that.
Cool. What about you, Dayna?
Well, my husband and I are originally from Iowa. We moved
Yep.
to Wisconsin about 14 years ago, and we had our first 2 children in Milwaukee, and then we moved to Verona 13 years ago, where we have 4 children now. 2 boys, 2 girls, ages 9
Fun.
and 13. Yeah.
Fun household.
Yeah, fun household. And my husband is a clinical pharmacist for UW hospitals and clinics, and he also works at Grace in Fitchburg and Janesville.
Okay, great. So let's get started with some questions here. First of all, economic development is extremely important to the longevity and prosperity in Janesville. What does economic development mean, and how does it affect an ordinary citizen, Gale?
Well, economic development is about fostering business in your community. It can be fostering new business, it can be fostering the growth of existing business, or even helping startups, as what we do with the Innovation Center, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So it's important because when you talk about economic development, you are talking about creating jobs, you're creating opportunities for people to be gainfully employed, and creating opportunities for them to be able to spend that money and consume within your community. So when you think about people making money and spending that money within the community, that is going to have an exponential or a domino effect, because other people will be able to spend, consume, make a profit, make a living, whatever that is. So it basically touches all members of our community and society when you're giving people opportunities to be employed and business owners an opportunity to grow their business.
Great. I'm going to come back to you with another question here. A big part of economic development is planning for the future. How do you see Janesville's economy changing in the future?
Well, with the changes in 2008 with the closure of GM, we obviously saw a major shift from that manufacturing sector leaving our community. And there were a number of supportive businesses that also left the community because their market was no longer here. Now, fortunately, if you backpedal 20 years, the city recognized that we needed to diversify that economic base. And that was done so by creating policies and programs to help foster economic development, one of which is most important one is the TIF economic development policies that we have in place for industrial development. So recognizing that we had needed to make a shift away from that one major industry, we started doing that. And basically it's about fostering business development in those areas that we have strong assets. You think about the interstate highway system and the ability to get products in and out. So distribution is a very good business sector that we could capitalize on, i.e. the Dollar General project. When you think about other businesses that we have, like medical supplies, medical supportive businesses, you have print and those companies that make packaging for medical products. Those are sectors that we can capitalize on. So we've gradually worked towards capitalizing on growing those business sectors and continuing to advance our diversification of our economy. So it is a part of a larger plan and strategy to move the community forward. And it doesn't happen overnight. It does take time.
Right. Okay. So great information about that. I'm going to come to you, Dayna, with my next question. Let's talk about the Rock Renaissance Area Redevelopment and Implementation Strategy, also known as the ARISE Plan. Can you provide some background to this plan?
Sure. So in 2011, the city received a brownfields assessment grant, which took inventory of all the brownfield sites throughout the city. Now, if you're not familiar with a brownfield is a site that has, based on its previous use, either it has identified or suspected environmental contamination, and its future use is contingent on those environmental issues being taken care of. So we had this citywide inventory done, and then we also knew, because of the DNR, that our parking plaza was going to need to be removed because it was built in two phases in 1963 and 1965, and it's outlived its 50-year useful life. So based on our inventory and the need for the parking plaza, we took the opportunity through another brownfields grant to look at the surrounding area around the plaza, and we know that within the 240 acres of downtown, there are 63 acres of brownfield sites. So let's look at those sites and see how they can be better utilized. Well, then the city looked and realized that based on location, ownership, and redevelopment potential, we really have 6 catalytic sites for redevelopment. And so the ARISE plan is really a guide for decision makers on how to focus our resources over the next 20 years for redevelopment downtown.
Okay, great. So what are the project goals and desired outcomes of the ARISE plan, Gale?
Well, as Dayna identified, there are 6 catalytic sites that are identified in the plan. The first and most significant of which is the removal of the plaza and creation of the town square. So really focusing on that particular area being the impetus for other redevelopment within downtown. Ultimately, it's about reshaping downtown and fostering other reinvestment within the downtown area and reuse of existing buildings. So with the large public investment that will be needed for removal of the plaza and creating the town square, you want to help foster other business development. And there's other goals within that, like for instance, the businesses that are along that square, they have a street frontage, but they'll also have their back to the river. And we want to help those businesses open that up as if it's another front door to the business that relates to the river. And there's many examples throughout our country that where businesses and buildings have been kind of reshaped to be able to capitalize on other assets, i.e. backing up to a river. Great location for a restaurant or things like that where you can sit out and just look at the river and enjoy that as an asset rather than having it covered up by a large parking ramp. But ultimately, it's about reshaping downtown and promoting other reinvestment within the downtown area. And when you look at the various sections of the plan or the various catalytic sites, it will do just that. We'll see a reshaping of housing downtown, housing types. We even in that plan have a proposal for modification of Centerway as it relates to the intersection of Parker, which would be basically a new edge of downtown when you think about that, and that would be the transition to the Traxler Park area. So it's very envisioning, to say the least.
Great. Okay, so next question is, since Arise has been adopted, we've heard some members of the community state that the progress downtown isn't moving fast enough. What can you share with us that is occurring behind the scenes that isn't visible to the average citizen? I think that's Dayna's question.
Yes.
Okay.
So keep in mind that the project of just the deck removal, the trail realignment, the shoreline redesign, and restoration is a $6.5 million project. So the city's budget just allocated $2 million over the next 2 years to that effort. So obviously there's a budget shortfall there. So just last quarter, the city applied for 3 grants totaling $4.3 million. We're looking for alternative funding sources, and that process, yes, we only did three grants last quarter, but we had to go through a process of what are we actually eligible for, and talking to state agencies and other government agencies, what can we do to help those applications stand out. We are also actively marketing our EPA revolving loan fund, our TIF financing, and the downtown revolving loan fund. We are also working with public finance consultant Ellers on assessing the feasibility of a cohesive downtown TIF district to finance the Arise projects.
Okay, so some good information there. The plan was just adopted around a year ago. What are some public and private projects that have taken place since then, Dayna?
Sure. So Arise is really a shared vision or a playbook for a series of public infrastructure improvements downtown. And our focus for the next 5 years is the town square. We've already seen changes taking place. We've seen Main Street reconstruction done. Blighted properties on River Street have been acquired and demolished. We are also using financing tools to aid redevelopment projects like the Grey Goose on Academy.
Okay, so then how about in the coming year? What does the city plan to do downtown, Dayna?
Sure. So Public Works Director Paul Woodard will be obtaining direction from the City Council on February 8th on the the two-way conversion of Milwaukee Street from Locust to Atwood Avenue. And that will involve restriping, the signal reconfiguration, signage going both ways, potential redevelopment of left turn lanes, and on-street parking reconfiguration. Should the City Council approve, there will be a public engagement process later this year. And then at the end of 2016, early 2017, you'll see the parking plaza come down and start work on that.
Right. Okay, cool. All right, we're going back to you, Gale. Going forward, parking in downtown Janesville will be changing, as we talked about a little bit before. Can you talk to us about the plans for parking downtown in the future?
Well, first of all, we recognize that there's a concern about parking, and we have done parking studies, surveys, to really determine what is the need. Now, fortunately, there is not quite the need for the level of parking that might be perceived, at least in the court of public opinion right now. Basically, we have enough parking that will be useful for our businesses. It's just that people have to walk a block, and that's a challenge, is to educate our community members about where are the right places to park in relation to the businesses that they want to go to. We say this all the time. We remind people, if you've been to State Street in Madison, you didn't park right at the front door of the business that you went to. So that's a challenge. Now, going forward, removal of the parking deck is going to have an impact basically in the town square area. The east side of the river is in very good shape. We have the parking deck that we built several years ago on Parker Drive. that's more than adequate for parking. Now, Dayna had mentioned the two-way conversion of Milwaukee Street. One of the elements that we are considering with that is introduction of on-street parking or angled street parking within that area. We believe that there is not a need for the number of lanes, the number of travel lanes that we have along Milwaukee Street, and with turning that into a two-way street, that's going to create some opportunity for on-street parking. That may very well meet a lot of the need. And one of the things that we need to do is actually go through that design. But in my my design background, I would believe we could certainly cover the near-term need. Now, the longer term is with other redevelopments within the west side of downtown. There could very well be a need to introduce additional, say, covered parking or deck parking. So we may have a need in the long term for a parking ramp on the west side of downtown. But certainly at this point, we believe these other interim approaches are going to be adequate to cover the need.
Okay, so big things coming in the future for parking
Certainly
in Janesville.
some significant changes for downtown when you think about a rise and you think about the near-term things, because I believe Milwaukee Street has been a one-way couple with Court Street for over 50 years, so it's been a long time.
Great, awesome. Okay, next we're going to go to you, Dayna. I've heard there's a revolving loan program for downtown Janesville. How does this work, and how can someone take advantage of this program?
Sure. So it's a program that was started in June of 2014, and it was authorized by the City Council with an initial investment of $54,000, and is being supplemented by a matching $10,000 each from area banks. Loans range from $500 to $50,000, and they range in loan terms from 7 to 10 years, and from 0% interest to 1% less than prime, depending on the size and type of the project. There are 3 programs. There's a facade improvement program, an upper floor livability program, and a Renaissance program. Eligible applicants interested in making improvements to their buildings can contact either Gale or myself before they go on to the Grow Janesville website and fill out an application.
Okay, awesome. So let's talk about the Janesville Innovation Center. So the Janesville Innovation Center on Janesville's south side is an important resource for startup businesses in Janesville. Can you talk to us, Gale, about what the Innovation Center is and what it provides the businesses it hosts?
Sure. The Innovation Center is basically a business incubator. So the idea is that most businesses don't have an opportunity to be fully capitalized and start right off in a professional environment building that's well suited to them, or they have to make tenant improvements that are significant amounts of money to be able to really start their business there. And so basically we look at the Innovation Center as 23,000 square feet of entrepreneurial opportunity. It holds bays that are for manufacturing or warehousing, although we want to focus on manufacturing for those bay areas. And then we also have other spaces that are office spaces, and those range from 125 square feet to 300 square feet. And the manufacturing bays have a range of 500 square feet up to 5,000 square feet. And basically, the idea is that you allow a business owner who's just starting out, and many of these businesses have been starting in somebody's basement or their garage or somewhere in their house, get them out into a professional level environment that they have other assets that are available to them. So they have a professional office space. There's a conference room there that they can hold meetings. They can have teleconferencing with the equipment that we have there and available. Where you look at the manufacturing space, these are spaces that are fully functional for industrial activity. Some bays need to be upgraded for 3-phase electricity, but for most businesses just starting out, these are wonderful spaces for them to get going. And it basically gives them an opportunity, again, to get started, professional level environment, and they can understand better how to operate their business, which one of the bonuses about being in the Innovation Center is that we actually have services through the Innovation Center to help people understand how to grow their businesses. And so some coaching guidance that is provided through ancillary programs to the Innovation Center to help people with their business startups, which is great because they can learn and hopefully avoid some of the pitfalls that maybe some other people have had as they've started off their businesses.
Yeah, so that sounds like a really great opportunity for new businesses in Janesville.
It absolutely is a great opportunity because, you get them in that environment. They've got their office space. They can have people meet them there. Again, the spaces where the industrial spaces are wonderful for production activities. So we encourage people to contact us or Mike Matthews at the Innovation Center to lead them through the process and get them in those professional spaces. We have had a very successful Innovation Center. It's very exciting. There are others around the state that are not as well managed as ours, so we're in really good shape. But the excitement about that is there's an opportunity for somebody to start a business and to grow that business into something big. When you think about some of the history in this town of homegrown businesses like RAF, like Lab Safety Supply, which is now part of Granger, those are businesses that started out of somebody's houses and became huge.
Cool.
And you think about the level of employment of all those businesses. I mean, that has had a lot of mileage, and certainly there are others too. You think about Parker Penn as another example, homegrown business. So, very exciting because what is fostered there out of that building can grow into a lot bigger things.
Absolutely. So how many businesses are there as of right now, Dayna?
There are currently 8, and I'd like to share that K4 Innovations actually just opened up a plant in China.
Okay.
So
cool.
they're already up and coming and growing.
Good
like
for
Gale
them.
said.
Awesome.
Yeah. Copper Fire Teas just moved in, and then we have Diamond Assets, DLG, N1 Critical Technologies, Norvec Networks, and Simply Solutions and Tandem Lock Inc.
Awesome. So lots of good businesses starting off good at the Innovation Center.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So 2015 was an exciting year for economic development in Janesville. I understand the city entered into agreements for 799 jobs over the next year through tax increment financing or TIF agreements, as we talked about a little bit before. We hear about TIF all the time, but what does that really mean, Gale?
So tax increment financing is a tool to help foster economic development. And to be honest, it's probably the most important tool that we have here in Wisconsin to use. Tax increment financing is a financing method that basically you take the increment created by development above a base increment. So if you have the 2015 increment created within a geographic area, and the increment is the taxes paid by those property owners. So anything above that increment over the next 20 or 27 years, depending on the type of TIF district that it is captured and put into a fund. That fund is used to pay off bonds that allow us to move forward with development sooner rather than later. So in our economic development policies and programs, we use TIF in a couple of different ways. One is the TIF industrial policy. And the industrial program allows us, the city of Janesville, to be a developer of land for industrial purposes. We then turn around and sell that land for $1. So we basically subsidize the land sale to help the business come to Janesville and grow their business here in town. And so that's so important because we basically underwrite the cost of creating that parcel, getting utilities to it, roadways to it, and then that increment that new business creates is used to pay off what our investment is in the project. The difference for the city doing this is the fact that we're not doing it to make a profit, unlike a private developer who would be doing that to make a profit. We're doing it to create business development here in the community. And so when we talk about TIF, it's very important that we create increment in the building, but the eventual goal is to get jobs in that building. And that's why they're all important pieces to the puzzle. And I think people struggle with what does that really mean. There's that group of people in the community that believe it's corporate welfare. And unfortunately, the fact of the matter is that TIF is important for us to be able to compete against other communities and other states for projects. Because without being able to do the land underwriting or some of those other things, we would just never be able to capture those jobs in this community. Because ultimately, even though geographic location is very important, it's not the only piece in the puzzle. There are other pieces to the puzzle. When we think about TIF in industrial or commercial areas, what we try to do is bridge the gap between the cost of building on a new piece of land versus rehabbing a building or tearing down an older building and building a new building. Because basically, from the city standpoint, it's less expensive for us to reinvest in the core of the community than it is to convert farmland into other commercial development or other residential development and extend out our water service, our sewer service, police, fire service, all of those things. So what you want to do is continue to promote redevelopment within the core of the community. So that's the other big thing that TIF is used for. Again, Dayna talked earlier about the TIF district that we're looking at for downtown. We think that's very important for us to be able to fund the ARISE implementation and then to help promote other reinvestment in the downtown. Because the fact is that in a lot of cases it is more expensive to rehab an older building in downtown because the codes have changed and things like that. And so when you get into a building, you get surprises. If you've ever done a home improvement project or your parents have done one, you've seen that costs can escalate because you found something that you didn't necessarily think was going to be there.
Right. Okay, so we're going to go back to you, Dayna, with this next question. Can you talk about some of the bigger TIF deals that will equate to new development, new jobs, and increase economic activity in Janesville?
Sure. So AM Castle is a specialty metal and plastics products global distributor and provides value-added services and supply chain solutions. They're leasing a 208,000 square foot facility on the city's east side that's being built by local investors. Once the project is complete, there will be about 90 full-time employees there. And
Great.
then, of course, you probably have already heard of the Dollar General.
Of course, yeah.
1 million square foot facility.
Huge.
Yeah. It's a $75 million project on 124 acres on the city's south side.
Wow.
And over the next 3 years, there'll be 552 full-time employees there. IPM Foods is moving up from Beloit. It's a food manufacturer, and they're going to be moving into a 150 square foot facility on the city's east side. They'll be bringing 90 employees once the project is completed, and then hopefully growing to 200 employees. And then SC Aviation is expanding their hangar at the Rock County Regional Airport. They're expanding to an additional over 36,000 square feet of space, and it's a $37 million project, and we'll be bringing 31 new jobs with an average of $31 per hour. So
wow,
that's
some
awesome.
good jobs. Cool.
Awesome.
All right, so next let's talk about TIF theory, Gale. So there are some critics of TIF theory. What is your perspective on the cost and benefits to the community with TIF?
Well, and I think I touched a little bit on the critics of TIF earlier, but
Right.
We can dive into that a little bit further. Ultimately, when you think about TIF, there is a risk for the city, especially when we're playing the developer and we buy the farmland, we convert it, we run the infrastructure into the site. But again, when we approach a TIF district, we approach it with the intent, and we've been very successful at recapturing all of our costs over the life of the TIF. So a TIF district is 20 years, in an industrial, 27 in a downtown or commercial rehabilitation district. So basically, as we approach each of these projects, each project has to be able to repay the incentives over the next 10 years. So if you approached the city, wanted to build an industrial building, your taxes over the next 10 years needs to repay the cost of the land, preparation for development, and any other incentive that we provide in 10 years. If that doesn't happen, the property owner or whoever entered into the agreement with the city is required to pay the difference between what was projected to be the annual return on the investment versus what actually has occurred. So if there's a shortfall in the taxes, say $5,000 between where we projected and what is actually being paid, they have to pay that. So in essence, it's done as a forgivable loan. Now, because we approach it in such a fiscally conservative manner, we've, again, been very successful and not had TIF districts that were underwater or never were able to repay themselves. And so that's how it's so important that we have been very good at managing these TIF districts. We have not entered into TIF districts that we're just creating revenue for the sake of creating revenue. You have to draw up a project plan, and that project plan ties to actually what you do in that area. So to be critical about it, no, it's such an important tool for us to be able to foster other development and foster investment in the community or reinvestment when you think about the other older areas of the city.
Yeah, it does really sound like an important tool for development in Janesville.
Well, when you think about Wisconsin relative to some of the other states around us or in the Midwest, there are other states that actually give tax reimbursements. So they'll forgive real estate tax to capture the company. And, under Wisconsin law, you cannot do that. So you have to create another mechanism to be able to be competitive with those states. Now, when I approach somebody, one of the important things that I think that we have here is the fact that the way we do these forgivable loans is that we can provide the incentive up front and then allow them to pay that over time, which on the other states, they don't provide the incentive up front, so it's a more long-term kind of payback on their investments. So there's some challenges there, and we use that to our advantage when we meet with companies. And certainly that was a point we made with Dollar General when they looked at us. We said, hey, your incentive can be up front. Now, through the negotiations, didn't work out that way, but it worked out just fine because they're building a big facility on the south side right now.
I think it's okay then.
Absolutely.
Okay, so then we're going to come back to you, Gale, with another question. Janesville prides itself in providing speed to market services for businesses. What does this mean?
Well, speed to market is all about our one-stop shop. And basically the third floor of the municipal building or city hall is a center of excellence. So you have engineering, planning, building and development services, and economic development all on that same floor, all working together as a team. Everyone knows and understands their role. They also understand that it's so important for us to be able to compete against other communities through the speed at which we can get somebody in the ground and up and develop and running. And that was so important for both the AM Castle and the Dollar General projects because they were on a short timeline. I mean, we're at the 3/4 of the way through January, and AM Castle was open in December. And basically, they built a 208,000 square foot building in 6 months. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But that was possible because we have all the necessary team members in-house that can get the reviews done. They understand the need for speed to get these buildings up and going. So when we compete against other communities, that's just paramount because it's an angle that other communities cannot market, that we can get them there in the ground faster. And when I think about the Dollar General project, we've actually been ahead of them. We've been able to show them what are going to be the hiccups in their review, in the negotiation, whatever that may be. We were able to identify those early on and be able to start creating solutions or helping them to create solutions early on because we know how the process works and we all know it very well. So it's very exciting because when I meet with a client and we can tell them that we can have them basically starting on their building within 6 weeks, they're amazed.
Right, so some good things happening on third floor in City Hall.
Well, and we've been a great team for a long time,
right?
And that's so important because everyone does know each other's role, and they can get answers. So it's not a case of where somebody has to spend a week to try to get an answer on an issue. Everyone's very well trained, and if they don't have the answer, they know who to get it from.
Awesome. Okay, so let's move on to our next question for you, Dayna. So the economic development website, it features a property tab on there that's very good for businesses, and it includes an interactive map of available properties in Janesville. What kind of useful information on that page can a business use to help themselves out?
Sure. So one of the features, there's a link called Virtual Build to Suit. So you can go on that tab and you can look at what does a 70,000 square foot building look like massed on a piece of property? What does a 700,000 square foot facility look like on a piece of property? And then you can go and you can look at the Certified Shovel Ready tab and see where in Rock County could I put a 700,000 square foot building? What sites are available? Another feature, like you said, is the interactive map where businesses or property searches can take place. Like they can look at, I'm looking for an existing building, or I'm looking for a site that's available. Now, I will warn you that if you put too many criteria in, you're not going to come up with any results. But there's a link on there. It says click here for more instructions to make this a better experience for you. I definitely suggest clicking on that, and then it'll show you how to optimize your search.
Yeah, so that sounds like a really good opportunity for businesses that want to come into Janesville.
It is. It's very
Awesome.
helpful.
Okay, so we're just about out of time here, but I have one thing left for you guys, and it's called the rapid fire questions. And so if you guys have watched episodes in the past, what happens is I ask you a question, I got a few questions for you, and then you just say first thing that comes to your mind. So we'll do Gale, then Dayna. All right, so here we go. So if you were on a deserted island, what 3 things would you bring with you?
Deserted island. Well, it'd be my wife, water, and probably something to give me shade or some sunscreen. One of those.
Yeah,
One or the other.
Smart idea. What about you, Dayna?
Well, I'm assuming that this is an island paradise.
Of course.
Okay, so I would definitely bring my husband and my kids and sunscreen.
Great. Yeah.
Yes.
Good ideas with the sunscreen. All right. So second question is, if you could bring any business, restaurant, or store to Janesville, what would it be?
Well, for me, it would be a steakhouse downtown.
Of course,
I would
yeah.
really like to see a steakhouse. We've got some steakhouses in town, but it would be nice to have a very nice sit-down steakhouse in
that would be
downtown.
awesome.
So hopefully through the Arise project,
There you go.
somebody will step forward and we can help facilitate that.
I'm sure you'd be all the way behind that.
I would be right there the first day it opens.
Funny. All right. How about you, Dayna?
Well, I would like a restaurant too. I think with Quentin Studer's new development in the New Orleans style, I would like Liliana's to come
Okay.
to town.
So that's a New Orleans restaurant.
Mhm.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. All right. So last rapid fire question. What is one movie that everyone should see in their lifetime, at least once?
Well, for me, it's the Blade Runner, 1982 movie,
Yep.
Harrison Ford.
Yep.
A very futuristic view of what American cities would look like in 2019, so it's actually pretty doggone
30
soon.
years, yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's an interesting viewpoint of where we would be, at least when the movie was shot in
Yeah.
82.
Yeah, that's really funny with those movies that were made back in the 80s, what they thought the future is like, Back to the Future 2. I think it was, 2015 they went to, and it's just, flying cars everywhere. It's just funny how they thought the future would be back in the 80s.
And the Cubs
So-
were in the World Series,
Cubs,
too,
yeah.
weren't they?
Yeah, and then they went to the playoffs too last year, and I'm like, oh no, they're gonna win the World Series, but I guess
Not quite.
They blew it.
Maybe this year.
What about you, Dayna?
Inception,
Yeah,
definitely.
that's
Architecture and the
Oh,
and
yeah.
the dream within the dream is
yeah.
blow your mind.
Yeah, I can easily say the first time I saw that movie, it blew my mind, and it was nice because I watched it by myself, so I didn't have any other distractions or anything, and was able to focus on the movie because it's a really complex movie, and a lot of people don't really get it. So I think I got it, but I'm not really
might
sure.
have to
I'm
watch it
not.
more than
You have to. Oh yeah, you have to watch it like 3 times.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's wrap it up. Thank you guys for being on this show today.
Thank you.
Yep. Viewers at home, if you have any questions for Gale and Dayna about economic development in Janesville, they'd be happy to hear from you. Their contact information is listed on the screen, and you can always find it on our website. Next month, we'll be talking to the Janesville Fire Department and our new fire chief, Chief Randy Banker. In addition to tuning into this program on a monthly basis, there are several ways you can stay connected to the City of Janesville. You can follow us on Facebook or Twitter. You can receive emails with our press releases and other information. And you can also receive alerts from the police department's Nixle service. For Park Place Views and the City of Janesville, I'm Andrew Eppen. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again next month.